Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Nur Aisyah Afiqah binti Muhammad Ridzuan. ID number MDA25020044. Today, I want to talk about an economic tools that impact our daily life, which is subsidies. So, what is subsidies, right? So first of all, we have to know what is the terms of subsidies. So it's actually subsidies is a financial support given by the government to individuals, business, or industries. So it's actually the purpose is to reduce the financial burden and make essential goods affordable. So here in Malaysia, we can see that through an action by the government incentives such as the sumbangan tunai rahmah, sumbangan asas rahmah, and also direct subsidies to various control consumer goods, which is there are few items in the market that the price will be controlled by the government, so that the Malaysian citizens who have low income still can buy necessary items. So what is the reason government did that to the Malaysian citizens, right? So it's actually to lower the cost of living of the citizen, and also to support critical domestic industry, so that our economy stays stable, and also that they also can generate income. So now let's move to our main focus today. So how does the subsidy help to moderate the overall impact of inflation, even when the price of global fuel are rising up? So actually, when oil prices are spike, it usually trigger the painful domino effect through the entire economy. So let's move to the first point. So actually, the Malaysian government did this one program a few years back, which is the name is Budi 95 program. So the actually this program is to prevent what we call it the in economics terms cost push inflation by maintaining people price ceiling. So through the initiative, the price of RON 95 is kept at RM1.99 per liter for eligible citizen only. By locking this price, the government effectively absorbed the global shock, protecting citizens from a sudden, which sharp spike in this cost of living. So next, it's actually reduced the spillover effect on everyday goods. Think about it. When fuel costs are stable for domestic supply chain, traders and suppliers have no justification to raise transport or product fees. Furthermore, by integrating with the subsidies petrol control system, the operating costs for public transport and commercial vehicle remain tightly regulated. This actually stops a dangerous domino effect where high transport costs bleed into your price of your morning groceries, food, and other essential market goods. Third, it directly preserves household purchasing power by keeping the petrol at RM1.99 per liter. Low family income don't have to make a painful compromises. They don't have to sacrifice their budget for foods, healthcare, and their children education just to fill up their petrol tank. To wrap things up, let's have a look at this strategy, how it is involved. So based on the current situation right now, as what we know, the global oil price and rising fiscal pressures, Malaysia has shifted away from expensive or blanket subsidies toward a smarter, which is targeted system via the Budi Madani RON 85 initiative. Under the targeted system scheme, eligible citizens who can purchase up to 200 to 300 liters of RON 95 per month at the subsidized rate of RM1.99. So this strategy successfully protect 99% ordinary drivers who hush with reality of the unsubsidized market price, which could otherwise soar beyond RM4 2 cents per liter. It ensures the government aid goes exactly where it is needed the most, keeping our economy strong and our household protected.
Inflation refers to the persistent increase in the overall price level of goods and services in an economy over time. When inflation occurs, each unit of currency buys fewer goods and services, meaning the value of the money declines. First, demand pull inflation. This happens when aggregate demand exceeds aggregate supply. Imagine a booming economy where consumers, businesses, and even the government are spending more. When demand outspaces production capacity, firms raise prices to balance the excess of demand. For example, during the periods of rapid economic growth, strong consumer confidence and higher wages can fuel demand pull inflation. Next, we have cost push inflation. This occurs when the cost of production rises, forcing businesses to increase prices. Common causes include rising oil prices, higher wages, or increased taxes. For instance, if global fuel price surge, transportation and manufacturing costs rise, and companies pass these costs on to consumers. Malaysia's recent inflation uptick due to fuel costs is a real-world example of cost-push inflation. Lastly, monetary inflation. This happens when there is too much money circulating in an economy relative to available goods and services. If a central bank prints excessive currency or credit expands too quickly, the value of the money falls and prices rise. A historical example in Zimbabwe in 2008, where uncontrolled money printing led to hyperinflation. According to the latest monthly update from Bank Negara Malaysia, the country's overall inflation rate rose to 1.7%, up to 1.4% in February. At the same time, core inflation, which tracks long-term price trends by leaving out highly volatile items, edged up slightly to 2.1%. Essentially, this tells us that the general cost of living has become noticeably higher.
The biggest driver is the rising cost of retail fuel, which is tracking expensive oil prices worldwide.
For example, the market price for diesel in Peninsular Malaysia jumped to RM4.12 per liter, and premium RON 97 petrol climbed to RM4.03 per liter. This fuel surge quickly turned transportation into a major contributor to inflation. Fortunately, the impact didn't hit everyone equally thanks to these two big shifts. First, government support. Policy measures kept a lead on standard fuel prices. Under the Budi 95 program, regular RON 95 petrol stayed capped at RM1.99 per liter. Meanwhile, subsidized diesel in Sabah and Sarawak remained locked at RM2.50 per liter. Second, cheaper groceries. At the same time, grocery bills offer some relief. Lower market prices for fresh food, especially for meat and seafood, it helps balance out the higher transportation costs.
Good day everyone, I'm Nur Syuhada binti Rosdi. I will be answering question 4 based on the article. According to the article, Malaysian inflation rate increased from 1.4% in February 2026 to 1.7% in March 2026. The increases was mainly caused by rising fuel prices, However, the inflation rate was partially moderated by lower price of fresh food such as seafood and meat. First, let me explain what is purchasing power. Purchasing power refers to the amount of goods and services that can be purchased with a given amount of money. When prices increase due to inflation, purchasing power decreases because consumers can buy fewer goods and services using the same income. For example, if 100 ringgit can buy 10 food items today, but only 8 food items after prices increases, purchasing power has declined. Next, the Consumer Price Index or CPI is the measure of the average changes in the price of a basket goods and services over time. It is the main indicator used to measure inflation in this country. When the CPI increases, it shows that the overall cost of living is rising and consumers need to spend more money to maintain the same standard of living. Now, let us assume that fresh food price didn't decrease as mentioned in the article. Firstly, Malaysian overall inflation rate will likely be higher than the recorded 1.7%. This is because food is one of the largest components of the consumer price index. If fuel price increases while fresh food prices also remain high, consumers will face higher costs for essential goods and services. For example, higher food prices increase transportation and distribution costs. At the same time, higher price for seafood, meat, vegetables, and other fresh food products would further increase household expenses. Secondly, consumer purchasing power will decrease significantly. When both food and food prices rise, households need more money to purchase the same goods and services. However, income do not usually increase at the same rate as inflation. For example, a family that normally spends 500 ringgit on groceries may need to spend 600 ringgit to buy the same item after price increases. As a result, consumers will have less disposable income for saving, education, healthcare, and other expenses. This means they can afford fewer goods and services, leading to a decline in their standard of living. Thirdly, the B40 group will be the most affected because they spend a larger proportion of their income on necessities such as food, transportation, housing, and utility bills. If fresh food price did not decrease, B40 households would face a greater financial burden as their daily expenses continue to rise. For example, a B40 family earning 2,500 per month may already spend around 900 of food. If food price increase by 10%, their food expenditure would rise to 990 ringgit. As a result, families may be forced to prioritize basic necessities such as food, rent, electricity, while reducing spending on education, healthcare, saving, and activities. Some households may also switch to the cheaper and less nutritious food option in order to cope with rising living costs. Over time, this could negatively affect their health and overall well-being. Furthermore, when households reduce spending on non-essential goods expenses, local business may experience lower demand, creating wider economic challenges within communities. In conclusion, if fresh food price had not decreased, Malaysian inflation rate would likely be higher, leading to lower purchasing power and a greater cost of living burden. The B40 group will be the most affected as they spend a larger share of their income on essential goods. Therefore, stable food prices are important in controlling inflation and protecting the welfare of Malaysian households. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi everyone! Today, I will be discussing about Malaysia's economic performance in March 2026. We are going to see two main areas, which is inflation and the performance of wholesale and retail trade in Malaysia. So, based on the data from Bank Negara Malaysia and the Department of Statistics Malaysia, March 2026 showed a mix of economy situations, which means Malaysia experienced some pressure from global events, but domestic economics still remains strong. First, let's discuss about inflation. Inflation refers to the sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services over time. When inflation increases, the purchasing power of money decreases, meaning that consumers may need to spend more to buy the same goods and services that they have bought before. According to Bank Negara Malaysia's monthly highlights for March 2026, specifically, Malaysia's inflation rate increased to 1.7%. The main factor that caused inflation to rise was higher fuel prices, which were influenced by the elevated global oil prices. Why is this happening? This happened because of the West Asia conflict involving the Iran, which created concerns about the global oil and gas supply, especially through the Strait of Hormuz. Since Malaysia is connected to global energy markets, higher oil prices increased the fuel and transportation costs and contributing to higher prices in Malaysia. However, the impact was partly reduced through targeted subsidies. Yes, under the Budi 95 program, eligible Malaysians continue to receive subsidized RON 95 fuel at RM1.99 per litre for up to 300 litres. Besides, fuel prices, lower fresh food prices, especially seafood and meat, help reduce some inflation pressure. Besides inflation, global uncertainty also affected Malaysia's financial market. The escalation of the West Asia conflict caused investors to become more cautious. As a result, the Malaysian ringgit weakened by 3.8% against the US dollar in March 2026. A weaker ringgit means imported goods and overseas travel may become more expensive for us Malaysians because Malaysia needs more ringgit to purchase the foreign goods and services. However, Malaysia's financial system remains stable. Banks continued to maintain healthy buffers and the Bursa Malaysia performed better compared to other regional markets, declining only 1.5% compared to the regional average decline up to 10.2%. Next, let's look at Malaysia's wholesale and retail trade performance. In March 2026, total sales value of wholesale and retail trade reached up to 169 billion ringgit, representing a 9.8% increase compared to the same period last year. This growth was mainly supported by the wholesale sector, which increased by 15.7%, while retail trade grew by 7.5%. The increase shows that business activities and consumer spending remain strong despite the global challenges that Malaysians are facing during that time. In terms of volume, the wholesale and retail trade index increased by 4.4% year-on-year, reaching 170 points. For monthly growth, the volume index increased by 3.5%, mainly contributed by the motor vehicle sector, which grew by 11.9%, followed by wholesale and retail trade activities. To conclude, Malaysia's economy in March 2026 faced challenges from global conflicts, higher oil prices, and pressure on the ringgit. However, government support through subsidies and strong domestic demand helped maintain the economic stability in Malaysia. The inflation rate increased mainly due to the higher fuel prices, while the wholesale and retail trade continued to grow. So, showing that Malaysia's domestic economy still remained resilient besides all the challenges it faced. Thank you for watching.